darlings, Mimi G here with another tutorial as part of the Mimi G for Michael Levine collaboration. Today we're going to be working on Vogue pattern 9116 View A, which is this super hot jumpsuit. If you're new to sewing or you just need a refresher course, make sure and view the Sewing Basics video in my YouTube channel before getting started. It will show you how to cut out your pattern, how to cut out your fabric, how to read grain lines and understand what the pattern pieces are telling you. Once you view that video, come back and follow along with me. For this pattern, you're only going to need a couple of pieces. So I want you to make sure that you cut out pattern piece number 1, which is the straps for our neck. You're going to cut out pattern piece number 2, which is the front. You're cutting 2 of these. You're going to be cutting out pattern piece number 3, which is the basic back, and you're going to be cutting it on the fold. And you're going to cut, of course, the front and your back pant legs, pattern pieces 7 and 8. You're also going to need to use elastic, and you'll cut out your elastic from pattern piece number 4. I have cut all of my pattern pieces out of my fabric, and just a quick tip, you might want to pin your pattern piece to your fabric piece so that as I'm sewing and I say grab pattern piece number 2, you can easily identify it. Here's a quick tip if you're tall. Go ahead and measure the inseam on your pattern piece against the inseam on your body. If you want to add a couple of inches, do it to the bottom of your pattern piece. If you plan to wear heels, put on your heels, then measure your inseam, and then measure the inseam on your pattern piece and see how much you need to add. Then simply measure from the bottom of your pattern piece to however many inches you need to add, create a new line, and then cut. Now that you have all of your fabric pieces cut out and you should have your pattern pieces pinned to them, we can start sewing. Okay, we're going to start with our straps. Pattern piece number 1, we're going to fold them in half, and we're going to sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way down. Make sure to backstitch the beginning and at the end. We're going to trim our seam allowance down to 1/4 inch, and you're going to do the same thing to the other strap. Make sure to sew across the bottom of one end only. We're leaving one end open so we can turn it inside out. And then using whatever you have handy, go ahead and turn your strap inside out. Maybe I'll show this part. Now go ahead and grab pattern piece number 2, which is the front. We have cut 4 of these, so one is the lining and one is the fashion fabric. So grab 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to pin the unfinished edge of our strap to the middle of our shoulder. And I want you to just tack it down so it doesn't move, right in the middle. And then with right sides facing, I want you to take the other front piece and we're going to lay it over the top and we're going to pin. We're going to sew across the entire front, the shoulder, and the arm's eye. So pin at the shoulder. Make sure right sides are facing and your edges are meeting. Align your notches so you know that you're doing it right. Pin. Pin a couple times across the front. And then also along the arm. And you should have a single notch on that arm too. Now starting at the bottom of the front, we're going to sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Backstitch at the beginning. You're going to pivot and you're going to sew across the shoulder. Put your needle in and pivot. Now we've sewn around the arm, at the shoulder, and all the way down the front. You're going to trim your seam allowance to 3/8 of an inch, and then we turn this inside out. Just let me show you really quickly. And we have an almost finished front, one side. You're going to do the same exact thing with the other strap and the other two front pieces. Okay, once you're done, go ahead and cut your piece of elastic using pattern piece number 4, which was your elastic guide, and make sure that you cut it to the right size. And then you're going to get your safety pin, you're going to put it on one end of your elastic, and we're going to pull it all the way through our casing. Make sure that when you start getting to the end of the elastic that you don't lose it on the inside, so stop and tack it down. Okay, my elastic is right at the end, so I'm just going to tack it down so I don't lose it. And then I'll continue to pull it through to the other side. Remove your pin and tack down the other end. Okay, now using pattern piece number 3 and then grabbing one of our fronts, what we're going to do is we're going to place it right sides facing, so open it up, and we're going to be working on one side seam. We're going to place the back Let me make sure I'm doing it right. Right side's facing, there we go. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn the other side over it. So we're going to sandwich our back piece between our two front pieces. And we're going to align our double notches, so you should have 2 notches on each piece. And you're going to pin at the top and then pin at your notches. And then pin a couple more times so that you can keep it all sandwiched together. And now we're going to sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance through all layers. Now when you open it, we have a fully finished and lined front and back. And you're going to do the same thing to the other side. This is what it should look like now. So we have our back and we have both of our fronts. And what we're going to do is we're going to baste the bottom of our front pieces so that we can join our fashion fabric and our lining. So you're just using a very long stitch. You're just going to sew across the bottom. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, go ahead and cut off any loose threads. We don't like to work messy. And now we're literally going to overlap our fronts. So make sure that you have your fronts are facing you. So you're looking at the wrong side of the back of your top. And you're just going to overlap both front pieces, making sure that you align and match your notches. Both notches should match up, and then pin. And then go ahead and pin just here at the tip so that you can keep it all together. And then make sure the other notches align. And you want to pin. And then pin at the tip. And now we're going to go ahead and baste this together. Now the front is done for the most part, so we're going to set this aside and we're going to sew together our pant legs. Go ahead and grab one front pant leg and one back pant leg, and we're going to place them right sides facing. And we're going to sew down the crotch first, or I'm sorry, the inseam first. So go ahead and pin all the way down your inseam. Start at the top and then pin at your notch, and then continue pinning all the way down your pant leg. You're also then going to pin your entire side seam. Okay, so with right sides facing, I pinned the entire way down my side seam, and then I pinned also the entire inseam of my pants. And now we're going to sew 2 straight lines all the way down both sides, starting at the inseam and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, sew all the way down. Alrighty, once you have sewn all the way down your side seam and all the way down your inseam on both legs, turn one right side out, and we're going to slip it inside of the other. And then go ahead and find the crotch. And so of course should be right sides facing, and pin at your crotch. And then go ahead and pin all the way up the rest of the back and front, and you should have 2 notches for the back so that you know that you're doing it right, and then you should have notches for the front. And then we're going to sew this using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance in one big U. It's like a U-shaped area. And pin my single notch for the front of my pants. And then at the top we're going to start sewing, and we're going to sew all the way till we reach the back. Go ahead and serge your seam allowance or trim it, and then pull both pant legs out. And now we're going to attach our pants to our bodice. Okay, so I have the back of my pants facing me. I have a pin in it, but you can also identify it because you should have 2 notches on the inside on your seam allowance. So I have the back facing me, and I turned my bodice wrong side out so that right sides are facing, and I'm going to pin my side seams and I'm going to pin the side seam of my other. So I'm pinning side seam to side seam on both sides first. And then I'm going to pin the center of my pants to my bodice. And then maybe just pin a couple more times to keep it all together. And then to make it easy on yourself, you could go ahead and put your legs in through your top. Get them out of the way. There we go. And then we're going to continue pinning along the entire front. Make sure your notches on the pants match the notches on your bodice. And pin a couple more times. Now that we have it all pinned, we're going to go ahead and join this together. I'm going to start at the center back, and we're going to sew using 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. Backstitch. And now we're going to do the same exact thing, except we're going to do it 1/4 inch away from the edge. Before we reach where we started, we're going to leave an opening so that we can insert our elastic. Okay, I've sewn all the way around and I left about a 1-inch opening so we can insert our elastic. Go ahead and cut a piece of elastic your waist measurement minus 1 inch. And go ahead and take your safety pin and we're going to sift it through our opening. And we're going to make sure that we don't lose the other tail end. So when it starts getting close, we can go ahead and pin it so it doesn't go inside. And just continue on until you reach the other end. Once you have both ends of your elastic out through the opening, you're going to overlap it by about a 1/2 inch and we're going to stitch it down together. Just sew across a couple of times. And then you can go ahead and put it on the inside. Pull on it so that you can go ahead and even out your gathers. And then you want to close out that opening. Now that we have attached our front, our top to our pants, the only thing left to do is to do the hem of our pant legs. So go ahead and serge all the way around if you have a serger. Otherwise you're going to turn under your seam allowance, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, all the way around. And we're going to sew the entire hem of both pant legs. hope you've enjoyed this sew along. Until next time, peace.